a significant developing story with the 49ers and Brandon Aiyuk and the possibility of this excellent wide receiver being traded. Here's what we learned yesterday. The Patriots have decided not to explore any further trade possibilities, but the Browns and the Steelers are in the mix for a trade. Let's hear from Niners head coach Kyle Shanahan talking about the idea of not having Aiyuk on his team.
Brandon's a great player, so it's real hard to be better when you lose a great player. So hopefully it'll all work out best for him and best for us in the long run.
Is there a disappointment it's reached this point? I know it could be resolved, but
I mean it's been at this point for a little bit, so it's nothing really new to me. I mean, you're always disappointed when you can't keep a hold of all your players or it's not going exactly right. I mean, I don't like losing anybody, so that's why I'm hoping it does work out here.
All right, so look, I mean, I'm not an expert in these things, but he certainly sounds like a person who is resigned to the idea that Brandon Aiyuk is going to get traded away. And there was another interview yesterday where, in something of a Freudian slip, Christian McCaffrey referred to Aiyuk as a former teammate and then corrected it. But it feels like the momentum is moving in that direction. We'll have Andrew Hawkins, as the show continues today, having just a little trouble getting his feed up. But of course, I start with my insider extraordinaire. Kmart, what are we hearing? All of a sudden, the Steelers in the mix.
Yeah. So the interesting thing about this is it seemed like the 49ers were intent on keeping Brandon Aiyuk. And now as the days have gone on, this is dragged out. Now the sense I'm getting is it's a matter of when this happens, not if this happens. Now, as you said, Schefter reported that the Patriots have bowed out. I'm told after talking to multiple sources that Brandon Aiyuk did not want to play for the Patriots, and he doesn't want to play for the Browns. And that's interesting because both of those teams made significant offers to get him. And when you look at the Browns, they also were in a similar situation with Deshaun Watson. They paid a lot of money to get him to Berea. If something happens like that, maybe he ends up in Cleveland, but as of right now, keep an eye on the Steelers. This does not feel like the Steelers team of old, how they're maneuvering. I think this is a team that understands that having non-losing seasons is not going to cut it in that division especially. So, Omar Khan, the GM, looking to do a little bit more wheeling and dealing. Justin Fields, they're not standing pat at that quarterback position. And Steelers are one of the teams that Brandon Aiyuk said, I want to play for. The other, the Commanders, who never came to the table. So that is interesting. If he wants to play in Washington, Washington doesn't come to the table, do we see him say, you know what, that destination doesn't work out, let me come back to San Francisco? So really, this is a situation that we are constantly monitoring because we don't know what could happen.
Right, he mentioned the Steelers and the Commanders in an interview on The Pivot, RC and those guys. And a reminder that for those who don't know that his connection to Jaden Daniels, who's the new quarterback in Washington, is strong. They were teammates together at Arizona State. So I turn to my general manager here. So you hear all of this. I want to put you in everybody's shoes. Let's start with John Lynch's shoes. He's the GM of San Francisco.
How's he feeling, Mike? How's John Lynch feeling?
What are those shoes like?
Greedy. I'm taking that last morsel from Kmart and whatever the verb is, cajole, beg. I'm saying to Brandon Aiyuk, guys, we had the lead in overtime against Andy Reid and Patrick Mahomes. We are right there. We have to pay this massive bill for Brock Purdy in a year. But just let's go, it's $14 million this year. It's not ideal, but we really can win a championship right now. And to their credit, they drafted Ricky Pearsall, Jacob Cowing. Obviously, they have Deebo Samuel under contract, Greeny. So they are as well positioned as possible, but I'm doing everything I can to appeal to him about his legacy. You're 26, you're gonna get paid. Just give us 17 more regular season games, Brandon, and let's go get this deal done and win a championship.
In your experience, do players do that?
Context is everything. He hasn't been paid yet, so I understand why he wants to get his massive payday. Sometimes you could say, hey, we agree not to franchise you. We'll give you more guarantees. There are some clubs in the bag. I would say it's doubtful, but I would try everything.
And here's the thing. It's one thing for a quarterback who is protected and all those sorts of things, and we saw Dak Prescott suffer a bad injury and come back. For a player at a position where it depends on all the explosive athletic stuff, he's getting paid $14 million right now. The market is like 30-ish times 4 or 5. He's got $14 million total left on his contract. It'd be very hard for me to say, I'm going to appeal to you to play for that and run the risk of suffering an injury that is going to cost you all of this.
Yeah.
So if they want to keep him, can they, I don't know if extend him is the right word, sweeten this year's deal, anything like that?
Yeah, again, the best way to put a Band-Aid on it is to say, like, look, we'll try to give you some guaranteed protection next year that could void the contract, but more importantly, we won't franchise you. So now you're going to be an unfettered free agent.
Right.
You'll be 27 years old. Presumably, you'll be the #1 player on the market. And again, if legacy means something, we have a reasonable chance to win a championship right now.
So the interesting thing in this situation is we talked about initially weeks ago how San Francisco had all the leverage. Because just because a player wants to be dealt, they've had other guys say, I want to get paid, and it's taken time to get those deals done, and they've made those deals. But when you look at this San Francisco 49ers, this whole scenario looks different if they had won the Super Bowl. Because now you're in a situation where, had they won the Super Bowl, you say, okay, Brandon Aiyuk wants to get paid. Okay, we did what we had to do. Go get your money elsewhere. But you can't really justify, you know this, you can't really justify dismantling a roster that looks championship ready when you haven't won a championship. So what do you tell your fan base? So that might be the position. They also have a lot of wide receiver injuries right now in camp. You know, does John Lynch say, you know, this is a well-oiled machine in San Francisco. And now you have Trent Williams unhappy. You got to pay Brock Purdy. Now you got Brandon. They may say, listen, let's get something done just for this year, and then we'll figure out the rest later.
All right, so let me get a different pair of shoes here. I'm taking off Tannenbaum. I'm taking off John Lynch's shoes. Now I'm giving you Omar Khan's shoes. He's the general manager of the Pittsburgh Steelers. What are you offering?
I'm going to give a first-round pick, and I would even consider Roman Wilson our third-round wide receiver from Michigan. And it's the inverse of what we just said, which is, hey, let's go win a championship here. We have a great defense. We got a great head coach. We've dramatically improved the quarterback position. We have depth with now adding Justin Fields, to Russell Wilson. And now when you think about Pickens, Freiermuth, and two really good backs, as Kmart said earlier in the meeting, I actually think they should go win the AFC North. He is, to me, outcome determinative. And I'm saying to Brandon Aiyuk, screw San Francisco. Come write your own legacy in Pittsburgh.
Because the difference between Brandon Aiyuk seeking a trade or Brandon Aiyuk being a free agent is that in order to acquire him, you not only have to trade whatever it is you're talking about, but you got to be willing to pay him, right? You got to be. So what are we paying him?
Yeah, you're going to pay him $35 million a year.
You're going to pay him the money that Justin Jefferson gets paid.
100%, which should be a bargain compared to what CeeDee Lamb and what Jamar Chase are going to get, Greeny. But if I'm Omar Khan, I'm saying to Mike Tomlin and the Rooney family, like, guys, we have George Pickens, but we need a guy that's fast and a difference maker. Last year on opening day, as Adam Schefter pointed out, he had 8 catches for 129 yards and 2 touchdowns. We could go beat the Bengals. We could go beat the Ravens with Brandon Aiyuk. So we're going to go get a receiver next year. Let's go get him a year early. I don't like giving up picks and money, but for a 26-year-old outside difference maker, it's worth it.
Number one, I need this to happen because Brandon Aiyuk looks just like Mike Tomlin. So off the bat, I need them to be together. But beyond that, I think when you talk about how the Steelers could beat the guys in their division with Brandon Aiyuk, the Steelers have been beating their own division. They're 5-1 against the AFC North last year. They are always competitive, and that was with terrible quarterback play and with Deontay Johnson and George Pickens. So you take out Deontay, you add Brandon Aiyuk to that situation. He changes the whole complexion of the AFC North. Like, to me, now I'm looking at the Steelers like, all right, it's not you can't just pencil the Ravens in because they're already 5-1 against their opponents in that division.
You're telling me you think the Brandon Aiyuk addition to Pittsburgh makes them a legitimate contender to win a division that most people are picking them to finish last in right now?
Yes, because he's that much of a difference maker. You can argue whether he should get Justin Jefferson money, but he is a difference maker. And who are you going to double? Like, who's the guy? Because George Pickens is a beast. He's coming into his own. He's somebody you have to watch out. We're big on Pat Freiermuth, right? Like, they have an offense. They have a new offensive coordinator in Arthur Smith. This is a team that we don't know what they'll look like. We really don't know. If they have Justin Fields at quarterback at some point, that could be a dangerous team. Yeah, we're going to get to Pittsburgh a little later, where they have officially listed Russell Wilson as #1 on the depth chart, which felt significant, but that's obviously what they list on August 6th is not what ultimately will necessarily happen. Okay.